Here you see me doing the cardinal sin of basically cold forging, but it's a bad habit that I get out of later on in the video. I went for a bit of a mistake in the fact that I got a slightly lighter anvil than I should have obtained. I ideally should have gone for something like an 80 or 100 or even 120 pound anvil, whereas this one is more around, I think it was 57 pounds. In some parts here you can see me trying to use a wire brush to basically remove scale, which is something that seems to build up when blacksmithing, and apparently causes all sorts of problems if you leave it on, so I made sure to give that a bit of a scrape. Although not perhaps enough, but at least it's better than nothing. Here you see me attempt to normalise the blade, basically by heating it up and then just letting it gently cool down without actually doing any hammering, so then the bits that have been hit the most won't be harder with the other bits being softer and it tempering weirdly. The red thing next to my anvil was in fact a magnet. The purpose of that is that when the item's about to get to a critical temperature, ready for the quenching, it loses magnetism, so it tells me that it is hot enough. I actually forgot to use it in the end though. Here I try to do the thing they call annealing, where after the quench and the hardening you actually heat it up gently a little bit again, but not red hot, so that it sort of eases it a bit and is less likely to break. And here's me tripping the fuse. I start with a belt sander, but I soon will realise that it's quite futile considering how much work there was left to do, since I didn't really forge a flattened edge enough. I needed to do a lot more aggressive and harsh grinding. And here I grind out a finger groove so that you can index it better. Here I'm trying to get a backstop on the back so that it basically doesn't slip out of the hand so easily. Judging by the amount of stone coming out of that wheel, any adept blacksmith will probably tell me that I'm abusing the living daylights out of the grinder, but there you go. Here I use a belt sander, which is less aggressive than the bench grinder and provides much more of a finely honed edge, as well as just generally more smoothness all around. So here is the finished product after a couple of days. So this is the knife. It's very lightweight because it was made from a fairly small file in the first place. The tempering will probably mean that it's going to be quite brittle, however it will hold a much sharper edge. It's got, of course, a finger groove up here, so you can index it better and it's more comfortable in the hand. It has got a bit of a backstop here, but again that will only count mostly on someone if they're using a smaller hand or they're using a bit more of a pinch grip. I mean, when I hold it in a normal fashion, for me, it's practically getting to the point where my ring finger is meeting that point rather than my little finger. But, you know, you can have it in a way where you fully index it or use it a bit. You know, it can still be fairly comfortable in the hand. And it's less likely to try and slip out if you're trying to do things like cutting motions. I have ended up with possibly the sharpest and most wicked point I've ever made on a knife that I've produced myself. Normally I get knives that are alright at cutting, but just cannot pierce into things like cardboard boxes or people without a significant amount of effort. This is much better, it's a much more gradually tapering edge, so I'm improving in that facet. I didn't really, when I was forging, I did flatten and stretch it out to some degree, and I am fairly happy with that, but what I'm not happy with is that I didn't really flatten I mean, the spine is the correct thickness, and I'm happy with that. It's not too thin for the weight of blade it is, but I didn't do it enough on the edge, so it took a lot of grinding, a lot of weight wasted just to make an edge. Plus, it's at the point where it's almost like an axe's edge. I'll probably get it on a sharpening stone so that it can hold a decent edge, but I could definitely have done better, so it would gradually taper, almost like a wedge section, into that blade, rather than this, which is more sudden. It's got a thick, main blade here, and then you've got just this part immediately tapering to the edge, and it means it's not going to hold as good an edge as it could have done. But apart from that, which is something I'll improve next time, overall I'm quite satisfied. For future improvements, I'd probably wait to actually do the quenching. I'd possibly look at pre-drilling some holes so I can have things like a full tang hilt, because I prefer full tang. Have that done and then do the quench, so that then I don't have to worry about it potentially snapping drill bits or being really difficult to work with, or even just the blade itself snapping during the process. So I can do that while it's soft, quench it and harden it, and then of course I can attach the handle, no worries. In terms of the overall flatness, it wouldn't have held a scale handle perfectly anyway, because it isn't a fully even sort of flatness. Even though it's much better on the blade, the hilt is less so. So yeah, that's my final result. I hope that you're happy with the knife. Oh, and let's just do one final test. I hope it doesn't fall out and snap, by the way, in this clip. It will kill.
It will kill.